Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Yesterday I went shopping at the plant store and I thought I would show you a little plant haul, but it was from the clearance rack, so some of these items needed to be cleaned up. So I thought I would chat a little bit about each plant while I clean them up, and then I'm going to get them planted. As I told you in one of my last videos, my goal this year is to make over the shade garden, which is behind me. And so far, I'm liking the direction we're heading in. And so yesterday when we went to Lowe's, um, we did a couple of errands. So Lowe's was one of the stops. I sent my husband inside the store and I stayed out in the garden center. Of course, he needed to run his errands. And when we go to the store, he likes to be independent as much as possible. He's working on that. So we get the riding carts. I go get it, and then he rides on that, goes to the different aisle. People help him, but he feels at least as if he has some semblance of the life he had before. So I don't micromanage. I let him go run his errand, and then I do mine. Mine was in the garden center. And y'all, I lucked out for the shade garden. So let me show you a bit of what I have. I I found a bunch of heucheras on clearance. Now, typically in a shade garden, heucheras play a huge part because their foliage add different leaf texture. They also add a bit of whimsy and color because most of them bloom, and this is one that is getting ready to bloom. So they send up these little spikes and they bloom and they add a touch of color that way as well. This is the other type of heuchera that I got. You can see that they're different, and so different colors, different leaf texture. In the last video that I did, I planted I think it's called citronella heuchera, which is a lime green chartreuse color. So all these colors play nicely together, which gives the shade garden variation in color that's not just green. Each of these plants were just $4. And so my husband had told me, for Mother's Day, I want you to get yourself something. And me being me, know that I can get a whole lot more from the clearance section and stretch my dollars further. So I went there. These were $4 a piece because they were half off. So these were only originally $8. But with everything that I'm showing you today, I spent about $75, but I saved $75. So if I had to buy this full price, I would have paid $150. But because I shopped the clearance rack, I spent $75. You can't beat that. So I got one of these. Each pot has about 5 or 6 different little plants in it. So if I wanted to, I could break them up. I may break these into 2 because that's how I have a lot of the heucheras that I have in my garden is I divide them. I use my hori knife and I just slice them down the middle and I plant them and they do well. The reason you do that is it may be small at first, but over time you have more plants to fill in more space. What I'm trying to do is cover as much ground as possible to minimize the weeds in that garden because those weeds are persistent if you leave the space uncovered. By adding additional plants, it'll save me weeding time and preserve my hands. I was diagnosed years ago with carpal tunnel, and so I do a lot in the garden to minimize the impact it has to my hands. So if I can plant a lot of plants, plant densely, I don't have to weed. Also, if I can do a project one time and not have to do repeated motions, that's what I do. Such as the edging in my garden with the rocks. I used to edge by hand, but at the end of it, my hands would both hurt. And I realized I was creating a problem for myself, which would later necessitate surgery. So I stopped doing that. Now, if I have to do things like mowing, which is repetitive, I wear my brace. But I am now edging with stones. And I do find that I like the rustic quality that it adds to my garden because I do have a woodland cottage garden in the woods. And as I've always said, I want my garden to appear like it's sprung up in the woods. So this is the first thing I got. Let me show you closely the second one. I mean, look at the color variations on this thing. So it's going to be really pretty. Some of these leaves are dead, but others are not. For example, this is not dead, and it just shows you that it takes on different colors. There's one in bloom, and it's going to look like that in bloom. Isn't that beautiful? So those are they. The other plants that I got that I've tried in my garden twice already, and I'm trying it a third time. And this time I'm trying it in a different location, different growing conditions, and see if it makes a difference. I feel like it wasn't much of an investment if I were to spend $4 per plant versus the typical $15 per plant. I planted 5 last year. None of them came back this year. These plants tend to melt under our full Georgia sun. And as a result of that, I've lost all the ones that I've ever planted. So this time I am planting them in part shade conditions and hoping that they will thrive in those conditions. This plant is a geum. I don't know if you've ever heard of a geum, but they're a perennial and they tend to grow in well draining soil. They do love rich soil though, so I will add some compost. But they bloom these beautiful orange blooms. This is a totally tangerine. You can see all the dead leaves, which is why they got rid of them. But y'all, look how much new growth it has. It's actually blooming. There's nothing wrong with the plant. But for $4, I got 5 of them to add to the area up by my office, which I've been retooling. And before you see this video, you will see that video showing how I made changes in that area. And if you've not watched that video, I'll link it below for you so you can go back and watch and see the transformation of that space. I think it's going to be fabulous when we get done with it. So I got 5 of these, 6 of the Heucheras. The next plant that I got was this basket of Calibrachoa. The reason they got rid of it is it had stopped blooming as profusely. You and I know that once you cut these things back, hit them with a dose of fertilizer, it's going to come back and bloom profusely. I'm actually going to use this in the pots on my patio as a trailing thing. And there's about 4 plants in here. So what I will do is take out each of those and put them in the pots on the patio. Haven't finished filling out the thinking through the color scheme, but for right now, this Calibrachoa will go there and I'll develop the color scheme as I go along. Another thing that I did get was these geraniums. And I feel like they play well with the Calibrachoa. And then I need something for contrast. So maybe a coleus or something like that in a contrasting color. And that'll be those baskets simple. One of the reasons I'm not going hardcore with my pots this year is I'm going to be traveling for much of the month of June. And I didn't want to leave a whole lot for my husband to care for. I feel like the only thing I want to leave him in charge of is the veggie garden, and only if we don't get rain for it to get watered. And if I leave it in such a way, he will only have to water once, maybe twice while I'm gone. I don't want to leave a bunch of expensive plants um, that need watering on a daily basis. So this is why I'm shopping the clearance rack and doing a minimal pots this year. Now, I may come back from vacation in June and decide that I want pots that are all that and then some. Because remember, we grow until October. I still will have 4 or 5 months of growing time. I would say November before we get our first frost, November 15th, that I would be able to still do pots. For right now, I'm doing the minimal in the pots because of that. Another thing that I got was this clematis. This clematis is called rosemore. And anybody who knows me knows I have a love affair with clematis. I have probably 22 or so in the yard at the moment. When they bloom, they make an awesome statement. I'll show you some footage from the ones beside the house that bloom first. And then I have others that I've transplanted this year. So they're not doing as well, but they will next year. Um, I added some new obelisks to the garden. So I transplanted the clematises to the big urns so that they will climb up those obelisks, but they're taking their sweet time getting established. So not much color from them this year, but next year I know they will take off because they're going to get fed and they're going to be happy in their current spot. Now, why did I select this one? I selected this one because of the color. Look at that rich burgundy color. Isn't that lovely? I went online and I looked at pictures of it in different people's gardens, and I realized I don't have anything this deep and rich, and I wanted to add something like that. Most of my clematises are in the purple family or pink or white family. So this is a good addition. Now, as you can see, it looks half dead, but it is very much alive, putting on new growth. I'm going to get rid of the old blooms, clean it up a bit, and when I'm done and plant it up, I'll show you in a future video what it looks like and you'll be surprised. Now this is going to go in the urn that is outside my mother's bedroom window. That has a new obelisk in it too, and I want to give it a vine to climb up. Then I will plant around that structure. The last thing that I got was a blueberry bush. We went to Ison's Nursery, which is one of the oldest nurseries in the United States. They grow muscadines and scuppernongs. They grow blueberries and they sell fruit trees and they sell all across the country. We're fortunate to live about an hour away from them. So we usually place our orders online and then go pick it up because then we get to pick the plants we want a lot of times. Or in the case of my husband, who we went to pick up a couple of trees that he ordered for them yesterday. When you order online, they typically cut them back to fit into the box for shipment. When you pick them up, you get a full size tree. This tree we got yesterday was about 7 feet tall. It's a pretty, one of the trees we got yesterday was about 7 feet tall. It was pretty big. So that's why we make the trek. Well, I planted a berry patch. I have a video coming for you on that as well, where I planted blueberries and raspberries. And y'all, I was mowing. And let's just say I got a little overzealous with the mower and I broke off one of my blueberry plants all the way to the ground. I don't know if it'll spring back. I wanted to get another blueberry just in case that one did not grow back. I will eventually get that other variety back because I chose to get that variety because it grows huge berries and they're super sweet. The variety that I lost is called Titan. I instead got this Brightwell because they also had minimal blueberries left. They've actually stopped selling certain things for the season because they're out of stock. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get these things cleaned up, get them in the ground, and then I'll show you some footage of what um, it looks like planted. Now, this variety is called Dane Strain Coral Bell. And I'll put the name on the screen for you. And there you are, the first one cleaned up. It took me about 2 minutes to do. So I'm going to go ahead, get the other ones done, get started planting, and I'll come back in a little bit. Here is the Geums that I planted. Here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they're all doing well and looking so vibrant and full. I did this nice little swath right across just in the curve of this bed, and I think it's going to be really pretty when they bloom. Really, really liking it. Here are the coral bells that we cleaned up and added to this bed. Here's number one. Number two. Three. Four. Five. And number six. And as you can see, they add more texture and color variation and shape variation, leaf variation to this bed. I grew this one from seed, this one from seed, and maybe five more in this bed from seed, which I will do again because I love Heucheras, but I also love the unique ones. So it's highly likely that I'll continue to buy them and fill in all the under spaces with them. Thank you for joining me today as we talked about my clearance finds and as I got them planted and cleaned up and added to the flower beds. Y'all, don't sleep on the clearance section. It's one of the best ways you can add to your garden and you save tons of money to buy other plants. Until next time, y'all, happy gardening.